For tonight's Transition to Wellness series, we are focusing on obviously meditation, exercise, which Kari's gonna do, and our portion we picked a recipe that illustrates something called, anybody ever heard of insulin resistance before? Okay. So the recipe we actually picked tonight illustrates foods that help fight that insulin resistance or increase what we call like insulin sensitivity. We'll get into that a little bit more later, but Chef, what do we have on the menu for tonight?
Today I'll be making for you a minced lentil salad made with beluga lentils and seared salmon with an Arugula Pesto.
Now, what were the lentils called?
They're beluga lentils, so they're actually black lentils.
Okay.
The standard lentil you might see in the store is actually green, and they have red ones as well. We'll take our red wine vinegar and our olive oil. And our garlic. We're just going to make a light dressing out of this.
And that's fresh garlic, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So one of the reasons we chose this recipe was when he was making that basic dressing, he had a vinegar, he had an olive oil, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So olive oil, as you'll see on one of the handouts, and you might have heard before, it's one of our anti-inflammatory, our unsaturated fats. So, cooking with using like a vinaigrette dressing, cooking your meats, using it in your salads, your olive oils. Those are, like I said, your monounsaturated, anti-inflammatory, kind of like what we call like a healthy fat. So that's what's going to kind of give it that nice texture, taste, and it's got a ton of health benefits to it too.
And I used an extra virgin olive oil. Now when I do the salmon, I'll be using a canola oil and an olive oil blend. But the extra virgin olive oil is great for salads because once you heat that olive oil, it's generally, extra virgin means that it's been pressed out of the olive and not heated out of the olive. So that will essentially damage the flavor a little bit for you and some nutritional value as well. Next I'll add the chopped mint.
Another reason, not necessarily for the insulin sensitivity thing, but one of the reasons that we also picked this recipe is mint has a lot of, if somebody's going through some taste changes, your lemon, your mint are a couple of the herbs, flavorings that can actually kind of come through on the palate if somebody's going through some taste changes. So those are kind of like the top two. There's a bunch of other ones, but got that in there too.
This is a sliced scallion. Our small diced red pepper, and lastly our Feta cheese. Give this a toss.
Oh, that's pretty.
Okay, so I'll let that salad marinate after I season it up here with a little bit of salt and pepper. Now, I did season the water for my lentils, so I'm not going to add too much salt, just enough to season for the vegetables and cheese. Now, pepper, add a little bit more. This is all generally to taste.
They're a really good source of your plant-based protein and fiber. So if you're going to choose a carbohydrate, this one has a lot of fiber in it, a lot of plant-based protein in it.
These are 6-ounce Norwegian Atlantic salmon fillets, and I'm going to show you how to take out the bloodline on them. So that's a little bit bitter in flavor. This is a boning knife, just a standard kitchen knife. Most kitchen sets will have it with it. You're going to make an angled incision right here at the gray part on the salmon. This is going to be running right where the spine is in the fish. We'll go back across the other way. And we'll just pull that right out and discard it.
Oh.
Now that will get rid of the flavor, and your presentation side is what we call it in the professional kitchen is the other side, because this is what's going to display out, and you're also going to put that side down in the pan first, so you get that nice initial sear when you put it into the pan, because the cold salmon is going to cool the pan. So when you flip it over, it's not going to get as nice of a sear. It still will, as long as your heat's up high enough.
So you were saying the benefit to that from a taste perspective, like say somebody doesn't eat a lot of salmon, and maybe they had it and had a really strong fishy taste to it, would that, in theory,
Yes, that's going to have a little bit of an iron taste to it because of the blood.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
So you might pick that up, especially if you're a little bit more sensitive, or perhaps the medication's making you more sensitive to that specifically even. Now, this is a different type of seasoning technique that I'd like to introduce to you. It's kind of like a quick cure. They use it, sushi chefs actually use it on their raw fish. They coat it with salt and then coat it with sugar. Now, it's a lot of salt and sugar at first, but you actually rinse it off with what's called a refresh. So it's like a quick cure. And what that'll do actually will pull some moisture out of the flesh of the fish, so it sears a little bit better for you. And it perfectly seasons it, so it's a little bit foolproof in a way, as long as you get your timing down. Now you're going to coat it with the salt and sugar and let it sit for 5 minutes. And then you'll come back and you'll notice that it pulls a lot of the moisture right out of it onto your cutting board. And then you'll put it in your pan.
Both salmon in the Great Lakes and salmon that's caught outside of the Great Lakes, there is the concern, since it is a big fish, that it might have some of either the mercury or the toxins in it. So that really discourages a lot of people from, it's like, okay, well, I'm not going to eat it. So there is actually a couple of resources out there. One of them is specific to if you do eat a lot of Michigan fish and you want to see, is it from kind of like southeastern Michigan? Is it from Lake Michigan? Is it from Lake Huron? This, and I put it kind of big if you want to write it down, but this Eat Safe Fish Michigan is a really good resource. I actually did part of my internship down in Lansing with them, and it has, for your particular area, which fish is of higher concern. Even with like perch, lake trout, any local Michigan fish. And then the one below, the Environmental Working Group, they have a really good resource for your high omega-3 fish. And it also they have like a really easy to use ranking system for high omega-3 fish, but also kind of lower on the risk for the contamination.
Now that it's kind of absorbed some of the seasoning there, and there is some moisture on the cutting board, we'll just rinse that right off. You're going to take a white paper towel and use it to take off the excess moisture.
Now is that so that if you have like one of those like fall leaves or like birthday prints or something, you're not getting that dye on it? Or?
Yes, actually, in a brown paper towel, believe it or not, are full of more chemicals. You think it'd be the opposite,
you would
but
think
because
that.
because they leave it natural, they have to treat it a little bit more than the bleached white paper towel. So we don't actually let brown paper towel touch any kind of food, but we will use white. So, and now the color of the fish will actually change because it's been concentrated a little bit, because the water's left there now at this point. So you look,
yeah,
they're a little bit different colors there.
That's awesome.
I'm going to get my pan, I've already had it on low, so it's kind of preheated already for me. I'm going to get my pan turned up a little bit to about a medium high, and put some of the canola and olive oil blend in the bottom of the pan too. Now you always want to add oil to a hot pan, because it, just like butter, it does still melt a little bit and will allow you to not use so much. And you can see it's starting to shimmer a little bit. I'm not sure if it'll come up on the camera, but when you're looking at your pan, you'll see it shimmer, and that's because it is actually melting. Once that gets hot, we'll put the salmon in presentation side down to get that nice sear.
I know we talked about, salmon's a really good source of omega-3s, animal source. Anybody know any plant-based sources of omega-3s? One of them is a seed. Yep. If you get 3 tablespoons a day of flaxseed, it has the same amount as a 6-ounce portion of salmon. So, if you're looking for a plant-based change or vegetarian, also hemp and chia seeds both have a considerable amount of those plant-based omega-3s.
Okay, so we'll season this with just some black pepper. Keep it nice and simple so the flavor of the salmon isn't ruined. Or not necessarily ruined, but covered up. You still want that nice flavor of it. Always drop your fish away from you so you don't splash any oil. Like I splashed oil.
Didn't get you though.
Not me, that's the important part. So as you can hear, it's sizzling now, and that's what we're looking for, is to get that nice initial heat.
Not too aggressive of a sizzle though, a very gentle, it's not popping, splattering.
Any higher than a medium high and you'll tend to burn, and you don't want to do that. Right. Now it's important to cook fish to about 145 degrees, especially with someone who might have a compromised immune system, like when they're on chemotherapy, I believe so. Starting to get some color change up the side. That's when I know I'm getting ready. Now your belly is that thinner part towards the end. That's the salmon belly. That will generally cook a lot quicker because it's a lot thinner, but it also has more fat content in it, more of those omega-3s as well. And that will be okay. It'll still be flavorful and not dry out because of all the extra fat that's in that part. It's good fat too. Now, in the fine dining restaurants, they'll do this with like chicken, for example, and they'll actually take the pan and move the protein up towards the top, which I'll do here just to demonstrate. And they'll tip it over the heat if it stays for you. And then they'll throw like some fresh herbs, like a whole sprig of thyme in there or something, and sometimes butter, depending on what they're doing, and take just a simple teaspoon and spoon it over the top once they flip it. And that's called arrosé. It's a French technique. And that will baste it towards the top, so it'll still cook evenly all the way through. Take this, give it a flip.
Yeah, just by looking at it, you can tell it doesn't look like a dry salmon. You can really tell it's got that moisture in it.
Got that nice sear on there, not overly burnt. Just a nice crispy texture to kind of break up that softer texture of the fish. Alright, so it's just about done. The other side won't sear as long because you want that nice crispiness on the top for that flavor. So I'm going to turn off my heat. So we'll just let this rest here for a little while. Just like a steak, you want to let it rest. While we're doing that, we'll prepare the Arugula Pesto.
Again, being a oncology dietitian, one of the reasons I love the arugula, it's peppery and fantastic, but it's a cruciferous vegetable, so it has either like 4 to 6 different mechanisms of action against either the enzymes that get carcinogenesis going. It helps mitigate or decrease inflammation, which helps prevent a bunch of things in the first place, but that whole group of vegetables, so your broccoli, cauliflower, all that, and arugula is one of those.
This is a rather simple recipe because you do throw just about everything right into the food processor. So this is our arugula first. I chose the arugula pesto because it goes well with lemon because it has a bright, slightly bitter green. And lemon and fish is great together, and then you have a lot of palate cleansing going on with this because you have the mint, the scallion, the lemon, all of that together. So that was our arugula. And then I'm going to add our parmesan, our basil leaves. There's still some basil just to give it kind of a familiar flavor.
What was that?
This was minced garlic. And then we'll add our walnuts. So we're doing walnuts instead of pine nuts, and these were toasted at 325 degrees for about 10 minutes.
So speaking of your oils, your salmon fats, those good healthy fats, a lot of your nuts and seeds fall under that category as well. So this is a real powerhouse recipe for those.
So we're just going to let this grind up for a little bit on low. Get things And then we'll start adding some of our olive oil additions, just to get all of it ground up for you. Now I didn't add all of the olive oil initially, so I want to scrape it down, make sure everything gets mixed properly. And then I'm also going to add the juice and zest of 1 lemon. So this is a microplane zester. I really love this tool personally. It's a little bit different than your typical lemon zester, especially when you're trying to do a whole lemon quickly.
It's that little one with the little circle. There's like 4 circles on the
Yeah, there's like 4
end.
or 5. That's
Yeah.
good for garnishing if you want that nice curl of the lemon zest. But for this, it's all going to get ground up anyways. And I like to move the zester and keep the lemon steady. That's just my personal preference. I find it just to be a little bit easier. Plus, you look at kind of the microplanes will grab everything. So if you need to measure it out too, you can just measure it off your zester. And also what I'm doing too, I'm looking at the lemon because once it gets a little bit more white, for example, that's going to start getting bitter, and you want to try to take just the oil part off the top. So I'm just very lightly going around the lemon until I have enough zest. And just give it a little tap, and it's ready to go. Now, when you're juicing a lemon by hand, I like to roll my lemons because you'll get a little bit more yield out of it. This will soften up and break up the cells inside the lemon a little bit. These are always handy just to keep your seeds out. However, if you don't have one handy, you can always just take your fingers and cup it and kind of strain it out yourself with your hands, as long as you try to keep your fingers apart, no bigger than the size of the seeds, and you'll catch everything.
Something I just thought of now. So a lot of your dark green leafy, like your spinach, your kale, a lot of your plant-based iron, to better absorb it, you want some type of acid with it. So like a vinegar, vinaigrette dressing, or in this case, that citrus is kind of acting like that acid. So once it's in your stomach, it helps you better absorb that plant-based iron.
Now it's all ground up at this point, and now I can start adding my oil again. I'm looking for a texture that will still sit on top of the salmon, but not drizzle over the sides, because we want a nice presentation still on the top. So I don't want it to be too runny or loose. Now generally I was looking for, once it started to pull off the sides and stop clustering up, that's when it was the right texture for me. So we'll leave that just like that. It's all ground up, perfect, and we'll season it with some salt and pepper, and it'll be good to go. Again, that's according to flavor and diet for you. Well, I'll give this a little pulse just to mix in that salt and pepper. And our pesto is complete. We'll take a spoon and just kind of put a nice little layer right across the top of the fish.
I like it because you can keep it in the fridge. You could use it on an actual salad. You could use it in like a mixed bowl concept, like this as a side dish. I mean, I love making a bunch of beans or lentils and just having them in the fridge to throw together wherever I want.
And you can actually leave the cheese out of this and lightly cook your peppers and serve this warm. So after you boil it and just saute it up.
A lot of the items that I was highlighting were your healthy fats and those high fiber carbohydrates. So those are the two big things that help with that insulin resistance. So the insulin resistance is that state where your blood sugar might be higher, maybe you had a bigger, I guess, meal than usual. Your body's kind of in that surplus state, whereas more than it needs. So over time, that's a little bit rough on the pancreas. So if you've got you know, if your carbohydrates have more fiber in it, they don't spike the blood sugar up, and you've got a lot of your protein, and then the healthy fats. Those all help actually balance out that blood sugar spike.
Just to garnish, if you want some extra lemon, you can throw a nice slice of lemon on there. That way you can finish your salmon off with a little bit more if you'd like. And then I want to show you this as well, because typically you see in restaurants always the sliced lemon. You know, they're kind of hard to work with, and you still get seeds in it and everything. And I like to avoid my seeds by taking off the sides of them and just avoiding that center part. And it'll present nicely still. You can still get 4 cuts out of it, just getting rid of the center pith area there. And they're easy to still hold and still give it a little squeeze at the top for your garnish.
Nice.
Here's our finished plate.
Beautiful.